Okay, well anyway, I write and I just finished a book, Near Future, and it is a collection of short science fiction stories that happen in the near future. And if you want to buy a copy, they're like $10 on Lulu, or you can get them on Amazon for 15, I think. But anyway, and then I also have some. And then also you can listen to the audio video files of each story for free. If you just want to go to the Warrior Facebook page, I try to list all these links so you can also link to buy the book too if you don't know how to type in lulu.com. But anyway, I so enjoyed writing that book that I've already started writing another one. And it's like the second episode of each story. And so I think I'm going to call it Near Future E2. And so the very first story, of course, in that book is called Transporter. And the Transporter is like the vehicle that the driverless cars, autonomous cars become, electric cars. And if you, I'm just going to start reading. And what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to skip over the bit that does the flashback of what happened in the first episode, because it's kind of long. But anyway, so I'm just going to read, I'm going to jump to the back then. Okay, anyway, so Transporter, E2, the journey back is virtual. Janet was calming herself by watching video of a raccoon and her kids as they were living in Janet's backyard. The cameras that she had installed were the latest model. They not only moved freely with a touch of a controller that she kept nearby, but they also came equipped with an infrared abilities that allowed her to see through the vegetation and locate mammals that were living just outside her window. With a little adjusting, she could see the baby raccoons clearly, and they were so cute. And their mother was so loving. It was something she could watch and meditate on for hours. It was a deviation from the trauma that she had recently endured. Losing her beloved transporter was depressing, but the experience of being kidnapped and nearly sold to professional traffickers was terrifying to her. Okay, and then I just go on about her ordeal when they stole her transporter. Okay.
What happened?
Well, if you read the first story, you would know. But anyway, or listen to it. Now here she was, still dealing with the internal trauma, having difficulty working or concentrating. The dark memories wouldn't leave her alone. She was being haunted from the inside of her skull. There was a flash coming from the screen behind, and there was a flash on the screen behind the one she was looking at. An alert that a business-related message had been received. Reluctantly, she clicked on the screen that she had been so captivated by to check the message. And it was from an old client of hers, very old. An elderly gentleman wanted to add a sunroom to his virtual reality rental. And again, if you read the first book, you know there's the VR part where they have people can rent houses virtually that might have been from their childhood or whatever, and then they make them look like they used to look. Anyway, Janet was an independent contractor for Oogle History. This meant that she was qualified by them to assist their clients who rented space on their site. She could help them create walls and interior space in their rented virtual homes, usually to make it look more like their childhood home. Now clients would often come to her with drawings that they had made themselves to direct her in creating their floor plans. The process wasn't all that difficult, and Oogle History offered step-by-step directions, but most people didn't want to learn the program, opting to hire someone for the one-time setup fee, interested in her secondary source of instead. This work kept her busy enough, but also gave her access to virtual reality users who might be interested in her secondary source of income. That was converting traditional video into VR format that allowed the user to insert themselves into the footage. By way of programs that were written as tools for software engineers like Janet, she could take a traditional video and make it interactive by the viewer. letting their avatars navigate within the video after she had converted it. It was a lucrative business that she owned herself, but kept secret from the Oogle people who might frown upon her soliciting some of their clients. This work could also be stressful for her. She tried not to know the backstory of the video that she was sent to her, but she suspected that much of it included images of people who were now deceased. Their loved ones wanted to be near them, sit with them, and relive those moments over and over. But this time it was official Oogle business, and she was happy to help Mr. Brown with his edition. The work did help her get out of her dark funk where her thoughts had been of late. After she had successfully finished the simple for her project, and Mr. Brown had thanked her for her prompt work, she stretched and stood up. She wandered to the window and noticed how bright the sun and sunny it was. She peered off into the distance where a field of berry bushes could be seen beyond the neighbor's house. It was a community park with well-groomed trails that meandered through a large wooded area along the river. She liked to go walking there often, and now the green trees beneath a brilliant blue sky were beckoning her to return. She reasoned that if it was just the kind of day for a walk and that she already completed a work-related task, so she threw a few items into a small backpack and left by way of a back door. She walked briskly between the two fence rows that separated the yards of two houses that were situated behind her own. It was a shortcut to the park. She made quick work of climbing the low place in the fence where she would often climb across to give her access to the park trails. After walking through and wading through a wall of berry bushes, she soon was on the edge of a forest. Bits of sand and bits of tree branches were scattered with the small mounds of tree root. She scanned the green foliage for fairies, both real and imagined. Green with bright spots, the sun was trying to enter the trail between the leaves and the sandy floor. It made her wonder, maybe I'm the fairy. She could hear people, picnickers and foragers were all around her. A bed of purple flowers peeped out of a lush green foliage on either side of the entrance of an unofficial trail that she liked to use to give her private access to a place near a small creek that eventually fed into the river. She loved the first glimpse of the creek, shining beyond the wall of green trees where lily pads floated on top. As a child, this had been her favorite place to gather samples for her school's citizen scientist program. Janet sat on a rotten log, enjoying the shade. She watched water trickle through a leaky dam that was made of dead trees that had fallen across the creek. Close to the banks, some gnarled branches draped across other broken trees to form a shelter of sorts with a badly thatched roof. Large crows flew overhead, and she wondered if any of them were the same that were making such a loud fuss when she tried to use her camera to see them better, as they were making a nest on her last visit. She wondered if they were afraid that she might want to film them. Then her vision dropped to a loose-fitting log that was at the base of a natural dam. Why did water falling over a log sound and look so soothing? She grew comfortable as she took in the wonders around her. People, noises faded away, water and bird calls filled the void. After she was sitting there for several minutes, she became aware of a low humming sound. She sat up and looked around, trying to locate the source of the sound. Then, right in front of her, near some brush, she spotted it, a fairy, right there in front of her, bold as could be. She reached for a handful of stones from the ground and beside her and stood up. She shouted angrily and began heaving the rocks in the direction of the fairy that quickly began evasive maneuvers and flew away. "God damn you, dirty voyeur," she shouted as it departed. These devices had become a scourge. At first, they were a toy that was sold to children that could navigate the cute little fairy-shaped drones while viewing life from their little cameras. But then adults became obsessed with the long-range, quiet little flying toys. When it was reported that they were being used to spy on exes, stake out crime scenes, and had become the beloved pets of voyeurs, they were finally outlawed, but not before millions had already been sold. And that's that.
Yay!
Thank you.